Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Reckoning of Roku chapter analysis video. This one's going to be for chapter 5, which is called A Clever Turn of Phrase. This will be the last kind of pre-release chapter analysis video ahead of the July 23rd official release of the book. But once we hit the Tuesday, the 23rd, we'll start up again and the videos will be a little bit more regular for the rest of the book. I don't think this one is actually in the previews, but I said I think roughly I do the first 5. This is chapter 5, so here we go. I'll mention quickly, I do have YouTube channel membership enabled on the channel if you would like to help support the channel, especially when it comes to doing these longer series to cover the novels, that sort of thing. But that is just there if you would like to help support. But otherwise, we'll jump in here. It's a pretty short chapter. It's only like 3 pages long. But it's still very interesting in terms of more Ta-Min, who's a very fun character now that we get to know her a little bit more. But it's also the chapter where you would say, okay, I see how the plot's actually going to maybe begin to come together here. So I think it's a nice point to leave off on to a certain degree. So where we jump in here, of course, Ta-Min is going to stay at the Southern Air Temple for a couple of days. Roku asked her, she agreed. She's trying to become a diplomat, so of course she's going to jump at the opportunity to stay with the air nomads a few days. And it goes very, very well. We jump to the end of the week and we see that basically Ta-Min, it's like she'd been at the temple for years instead of days. Everyone loves her. She takes part in everything. She does chores, the prayers, meditation sessions. She's playing with the children. She's having long conversations with Daisha, Rabten, other elders. So much so that Daisha, who is kind of advocating that, oh, Roku, you shouldn't even meet with her, let alone maybe allow her to stay here. Daisha completely switches around here and is like, she gives Ta-Min a set of air nomad robes and goes on to really like her and have such a great respect for Ta-Min. So Ta-Min is incredible, is the kind of takeaway here from this kind of early section. And it's so much so that Daisha is even like, hey Roku, you bring Ta-Min down to the kind of base of the mountain on my sky bison. The only part of the deal here is that you have to take Gyatso with you. So again, it's this idea of Daisha trying to pair up Gyatso and Roku for whatever reason. We'll get more on this, I suppose, in the coming chapters. Because Gyatso, you have to be aware, is here throughout this chapter, but he's in the back, basically. He stays with Amra as kind of Ta-Min and Roku go for a walk, basically, is sort of the idea of this chapter here. So they are talking here. So he says, I think Sister Daisha is ready to grant you your arrows as just a joke about how well she has adapted and how much everyone loves her, basically. He then asks more seriously, but seriously, I do envy the way you feel so at home here. How do you do it? How do you adjust so easily? Because even though Roku's been here a couple of months longer than Ta-Min, he hasn't adapted as easily. She says, well, I like people, and if I want to be a great diplomat, I need to learn as much as I can about different cultures. Maybe it's similar to being the Avatar in that regard, minus all the bending. Roku then brings up the whole idea that, oh, Daisha's telling me that I should be a spirit of no nation, and I've been trying to figure out what exactly that means, researching the past lives, and his takeaway for now is just that I think I just need to learn more about the world. And Ta-Min picks up on this and is like, spirit of no nation, a clever turn of phrase. But I don't think it's quite right. And Roku's like, oh, you disagree with Daisha about something. That's bold. Tell me more. And this is where we get probably the most significant part of this chapter, minus the plot kind of detail right at the end, is she basically goes on to effectively tell Roku, perhaps it's not being a spirit of no nation, but more about being a spirit of all nations. And this was a really cool thing to see, because I basically, prior to even getting to this chapter, was like, I think that's probably the angle Roku should take on things. And it's so interesting that it's Ta-Min who is the one to tell him. Someone who wants to be a diplomat, and this is kind of how she views things. But how she gets here is quite interesting, because there's a whole kind of paragraph just before she says, spirit of all nations. It seems to me spending time as part of each nation is integral to being the Avatar. Maybe it's necessary to deeply care about your homeland so that you can empathize with how others feel about theirs. Once you fully understand that each is as valuable and as flawed as the other, that could motivate you to strive for peace and balance between the four nations. And Roku really considers this and is like, wow, that's impressive. Like, you're going to be a great diplomat. But I will keep your criticism of Sister Daisha's core belief to myself, lest you lose her favor. And she's like, my hero. And a silence comes up again, but it's a comfortable silence this time, unlike maybe a few days ago before, where it was maybe a little bit more awkward. They have actually got to know each other, and so they are much more comfortable around each other. And Roku is sort of thinking to himself how much he has liked the last few days, doing all this stuff kind of together, and it's sort of helped him to better adapt to being with the air nomads. They even note a little detail here of like, apparently Tamin and Roku would try to guess the animal that the other was trying to create out of firebending, or simply being together, basically. And he thinks to himself that, like, this is what he longs for, being around Tamin, not the Avatar hood. So it's an interesting one where Daisha, of course, goes on to like Tamin, but it maybe has gone the other kind of way in terms of, like, she's trying to help him with his detachment, yet he's become maybe even more attached to someone from the Fire Nation. But that same person has maybe given him the opening to the correct, like, approach to have as the Avatar, of maybe not being entirely Fire Nation. So there's an interesting kind of back and forth here of, like, there's a, like, he's overly maybe attached to Tamin at this point to a certain degree, but she has really helped him. And I think you can tell by, like, stuff in the RPG with Roku, to a certain degree, like how he describes, I suppose, his training after this in 306, that maybe he really does shape his training of being the Avatar, not just around, like, I will spend enough time in each nation to learn the element and then move on, but that, no, I will actually spend a few years living in each nation and properly experiencing that at the same time as learning the element. This is where we get into the idea of, like, oh, is Roku's journey as the Avatar maybe a little bit more unique than we think? Do all avatars spend like 4 years in each nation, or is it a bit quicker in some cases? We don't fully know, but it does seem like Roku does take that little bit of extra time to really make sure he does understand all these nations, as in he has lived in all of the nations. That is something we basically know from the RPG. So Tamin's advice really means a lot to him going forward. But anyway, he's thinking about the future and doesn't realize that the earth is shifting underneath him before, basically, Roku and Tamin both plummet straight down into effectively an earth trap hole. They do firebend up to try and kind of keep the opening open. It is revealed that an earthbender has done this, and he seals them over as he says, Earth King Jailun sends his regards, Avatar. And so we end the chapter with Roku and Tamin trapped underneath Earth. And how are they going to get out of this, of course? But I believe what happens immediately after this is basically what's on the back cover of the book. So we basically know what happens. But anyway, like this is a notable kind of plot progression detail in terms of Roku has just refused to get involved in the incident on the island. A few days ago, of course, Tamin has sent a message back to Sozin to confirm this. So this is almost convenient with its timing when it has happened here. This is also, I think, the first mention of Earth King Jailun in the book so far, confirming that, yes, the RPG Earth King, as named there, is in fact the Earth King of this era, and they had to do that, otherwise continuity would be a little bit wrong. But no, that is correct. But yeah, that's the big thing here. It's just like, okay, Roku has basically been attacked by the Earth Kingdom. That's certainly going to make him think about something here. Roku has his own pride, but the fact that Tamin has been caught in this as well, that's also going to get him a bit angry. So the idea here is we probably would be expecting Roku to reconsider stepping away from this issue, and now he feels like I probably have to step in, especially if the Earth King is directly coming at me like this. So we're going to get some interesting stuff in the next chapter. But yeah, that's the, it's only 3 pages. It's a quick one, but there's some great stuff with Ta Min here, who I think really stands out. She'll be in the next chapter, I think, as well for a little bit, but she's really fun to see finally get characterized. But yeah, that's where the chapter comes to an end. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this one. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.